Despicable Me 4 just hit theaters this weekend, so let's stop and rank all 6 movies. Let's go.
Me, they call me mellow yellow, quite rightly.
The Minions, 2015. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush here. This movie is just bad. Dude, when you failed your job of making an entertaining Minions movie to keep your kid entertained for like an hour and a half and it's just not entertaining, then that's a problem. This movie is really just not enjoyable. You have to be a little kid to enjoy it. Now, there's a few things that I did like, is the fact that they explored upon the lore of the Minions. But other than that, this movie just failed. It failed the task of giving us a memorable villain. I mean, Scarlet Overkill was okay, but she's nothing to write home about. And also, for a majority of this movie, it's just a bunch of scenes just rambled up into one. It doesn't flow at all. To be honest, it's just a bunch of random sequences that have little to no lead up. Like, literally, this movie led up just to them meeting Gru, and it didn't even fit into the story correctly. Like, it just didn't even work. Like, you can't have a Minions movie without Gru. Other than that, the story as a whole is just booty. The Minions really work best in their tiny, short sequences, not an hour and a half. Because then it gets really annoying. I mean, seriously, I feel bad for all the parents that had to take their kids to see this, because this is like a migraine for an hour and a half. The plot as itself is just weak and stupid. Like, Scarlet Overkill and the Minions subplot does not work at all, and I know this movie's made for kids, but it still just doesn't work. So that's why Minions goes in last place.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say.
Despicable Me 2. Now, don't get me wrong, this is an insane improvement over the Minions, but it's still one of the weakest movies in the franchise. But I do want to start with the positives, because I actually have some for this movie, unlike the Minions. First off, the purple Minions were better villains than El Macho. Also, the action sequences towards the third and final act were amazing. The character of Lucy is pretty good, but other than that, we have some huge flaws here. There's a lot of stories that end up just being built up to nothing, and Gru's character as a whole isn't really expanded here. Also, these are some really awesome Minion sequences that are really great. I completely forgot to include the Minion sequences in my positives, but just please forgive me. Also, Gru and Lucy's relationship feels really forced in here, and it just doesn't work well. But other than that, if this movie wasn't successful, then Pharrell Williams' Happy would not be relevant at all.
I know you heard the rumors, you must get over to it right away.
Despicable Me 4, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. This was a disappointment. It's not as bad as Minions and Despicable Me 2, but it's pretty rough. Yes, this movie is very entertaining, but other than that, one of the biggest issues I have with this movie is the Mega Minions. But they're also the best part of the movie. But the issue is, they're in it for like 30 minutes. And they were the biggest marketing trope and the strongest part of the movie, and they barely used them. Also, this movie had a really weak villain. And also, I do like some of the things they did of the family trying to go disguised while Maxine is hunting them. But it was just done wrong and created a bunch of filler sequences in the movie. And to be completely honest with you, this movie is nothing but jumbled subplots. Shame me all you want for this, but I actually like Despicable Me 3, and that's why I put it this high on the list. Despicable Me 3 is funny, enjoyable, and has all the classic tropes of the last couple movies. In this movie, the Minions have their little sequence in prison, and that is the best part of it. Also, Balthazar Brat as a villain is one of the best villains. He has like this 80s nostalgic vibe to him where they give him some really cool gadgets and weapons to use in here. Gru's brother Drew is a highlight of this movie. And also the final battle and the story they have going on here. Also, Steve Carell knocked it out of the park, voicing both Gru and Drew. Plus, the unicorn subplot with Agnes was actually kind of funny for once. The first time this franchise has ever done a subplot right was in Despicable Me 3. It does have its issues, like the pacing is all over the place. And just gonna keep it a buck with you, the Lucy story is just mid. But I do like what they did with Marco and Lucy. That was the best part about her. But overall, I enjoy Despicable Me 3. I don't enjoy it as much as...
For Gru, being a supervillain isn't easy.
Despicable Me, so many positive things I can say about this movie. The minions are funny, Steve Carell is good, the character arc he goes through with realizing that his kids are bringing him more happiness than being the criminal mind of the century. Vector as a villain, he is like one of the greatest villains ever. We have the minions introduced for the first time, the stepping stool for the rest of the movies. It is just a blast, and this Despicable Me movie is so iconic. It brought us so many memes. I can't even emphasize on how many memes we have from this movie. But yeah, Despicable Me 1 is pretty high up there on the list, but not as high as my favorite movie in the franchise. I absolutely love it. I had an amazing time watching it in theaters. It's a little movie called Rise of Gru. If somebody can give me an explanation of why Rise of Gru is so good, that'd be much appreciated. Here, the animation is the strongest it's been in the entire franchise. The minions are the best they've been in the entire franchise. I love seeing Gru as a kid commit his first little crimes. The cameos from Dr. Nefario. What this whole movie just straight up builds up to is brilliant. I really loved what they captured in Minions Rise of Gru. Also, freaking the story Gru goes through when he becomes a slave, when he's a minion to the Vicious Six, he earns respect towards his minions, and that really plays out the story of why he has these minions and why it's so good. Also, the minions as themselves work so much better on their own this time than they did in that first Minions movie, and they also work really good when Gru's there. And this is the most entertaining out of the 6 movies. Anyway, that was my ranking of Despicable Me movies. Tell me what you guys thought. What would you change? What would you keep? And if you just completely agreed with my ranking, well, I will see you all later.